This is the Impunity Observer podcast. Fergus Hodgson, your host. Thank you for tuning in, giving us your attention. So much has been going on with the publication, and I want to thank everyone who is engaged with us, especially on X. One such person is Daniel Cruz. He is a Canadian-Honduran dual citizen, dividing his time between the two countries. He's author of China versus the United States, So Much to Lose in a War, although it's in Spanish. He is a consultant and investor entrepreneur. I mean, an independent man, the kind we like, who shoots from the hip, and has a great deal of international experience. So, Daniel, it's my pleasure to meet you and hear your perspective. Now, the big topic regarding Honduras is just whether Honduras will become another Nicaragua, another what I call neo-feudal dictatorship, a new form of dictatorship. Is this actually on the cards?
Well, thanks very much for inviting me, Fergus. I was really excited. I'm really excited to be here. And straight to the point, yes, we do have a problem. I agree totally with the feudal situation, because that's exactly what it's in the mind, unfortunately, of some people here. Very backward thinking. You have this, I have to say, it's mostly rural extraction people. People come from like towns, and they use economic and political power, get into the government, and then they seemingly feel the need to turn the whole country into their own personal haciendas. We have a caudillo problem. It's not only in Honduras, it's not only in this Central American region, it still is a problem in Latin America. You can see it in Mexico. You can even see it in Argentina. I mean, bigger countries. So yes, that's what's going on.
Yes, but how likely is that? What's going on? But now I don't want to pick or choose different candidates, but does it have to go through the Libre Party, or is it just a broader shift regardless of party?
No, it's definitely not a party thing, Fergus, because you could see that in the Juan Orlando Hernandez government with the Partido Nacional. It was the same mindset. Yes, he comes from a town in Honduras, very small city called Gracias, and goes into the government and then tries to make the country like his own personal thing. It's not a party thing. It's a way of thinking. It's this backward thing that we haven't, it's an education thing as well. So we have that. We still have politicians thinking that way. We have to solve this. How do we solve this? We need a technocratic. A lot of people hate that word here. It has a negative perspective, but we do need a technocracy here. We need to raise the standards and just put people who know how to run things and how to make successful things from the point of view of systems, engineering, method. We need modernity to come here, take upon the government so that people can see what the difference is, and just never again support people who have this 15th century ideas of what a country should be like. So yes, we do live in the middle of that danger, Fergus.
I would like to announce my latest book, The Latin America Red Pill, My Search for Freedom South of the Border, available in Spanish as La Píldora Roja de America Latina. This book distills 15 years of exploration and analysis and is part autobiography. If you want to get past political correctness to understand the reality on the ground, read The Latin America Red Pill. You will learn how to survive the law of the jungle, when a move to Latin America makes sense, the key to entrepreneurial success in the region, what Latin America needs to achieve development, and a whole lot more. Go to Amazon.com or click the link below to get your copy. Thank you. Yeah, it has been my concern and assertion that Honduras is the most vulnerable country in Latin America right now to become let's say, a deep member of the Bolivarian alliance of leftist or socialist dictatorships. Now, it's interesting you bring up the previous Juan Orlando or National Party administration, because, of course, there's a peculiar history here in Honduras where Mel Zelaya was removed from office for trying to have re-election, but then Juan Orlando just does it just by getting the court to say it's okay. So it's a very peculiar scenario. We laugh, but
Nobody
yeah.
had said it the way you just did. And it's so true. He just comes and does it. He did it. He stayed there. He's twice president. It's incredible.
As an outsider, it's the strangest thing that you literally got the military to kick the past guy out to Costa Rica, and then know, oh, okay, well, if we do it, it's fine. Yeah. So it isn't. It's now we are in a very sensitive time. Now, are you following the how can I put this? The integrity of the electoral process, in that, do you think there will be foul play in terms of the counting or a lot of dark money in the campaigns? Do you want to touch upon that?
I think there's two dimensions to that, Fergus. There's the psyop, psychological operation dimension to elections, and then there's the real system at work. I want to say that because there's been forever and ever, there's been, I don't know if in some other countries it's the same. I can speak for Honduras. And there's always been fraud, election, election fraud in every election, in every presidency. It's in a way it's an element that seems to be an integral part of Honduran electoral politics. But we have to say that there's been really goodwill to correct that, and to yes, to correct that, and get the technical means to correct that situation so that you don't have instances where presidents come and say, well, he actually lost, but he stole the election. That's what it said about Juan Orlando Hernandez, by the way, and he's not the only one. You probably have seen that Manuel Zelaya also say that his presidency was won because of an election fraud. I think he was not saying it as people think, it was not a confession. He was actually saying that there's always, fraud has always been around. But like I say, I see a really good will of trying to correct that. And the psychological operation part, Honduran people are possessed still by that. I do think they defeated that on this past election. Everybody was saying that it was 100% sure that the National Party was still in the election, but people still went. It was, this massive presence of the public voting that defeated the National Party and put this current present Libre government in place. I think people's gonna apply that. So there's that psychological dimension. It's part of the folklore now, that fraud and elections and fraud. On the technical part, I do think that that kind of fraud, and especially because we have seen it in other countries, I do think that part is very hard now. It's harder. I'm not saying it's impossible, but I think it's very difficult. It's very difficult to perform a massive fraud that's just going to steal away the election. I think fraud will be present in many ways on a smaller scale, not enough to actually steal the election. So if you ask me, Fergus, I feel, mildly positive about the outcome of the election, in spite of fraud being present.
So yeah, you're just saying, and I tend to agree with you, that there are all sorts or different types of fraud going on in the electoral process in Honduras, but maybe it's the modern era with just greater scrutiny to pull off the kind of theft that occurred in Venezuela. I think it was 2023 now. That's just too much. If you got 70% plus of the population voting one way, you can't just flip that the entire way and expect anyone to believe it.
This is what they're saying, that massive vote. It's a saying now running among the people. Massive vote kills fraud. Yes, you can steal it, Maduro style, but what are the consequences of that? What you want to steal the election is just not declaring yourself the winner. It's actually becoming a president, a presidency, a head of state that is accepted and respected around the world. Do it Maduro style, and you end up with what is happening in Venezuela right now, which is not, it's not really funny for them anymore.
It is not funny, and because even their allies like Gustavo Petro in Colombia, are reluctant to endorse the Maduro regime and will just use waffly language. So you're right that it's not just a challenge of stealing or getting the most votes at the final tally, but it's maintaining legitimacy. That's the great problem that, of course, Venezuela or the Chavistas do not have at this point. Now, your book obviously covers this quasi Cold War with China. Do you want to touch upon the implications of Honduras's pivot towards Beijing over Taiwan?
I do. You know why? Because there's this extremely, extremely grave danger, or this bad idea, this terrible concept that China represents an alternative development model. It's just lack of information, man. This is what I try to address. As we were talking before, I was telling you that this started as the letter that I was writing. I say I'm just going to write, one page saying you're making a big mistake. But then I say I'm just going to add another page saying this is why. Okay, 2 pages turn into 3 pages, turn it into 12 pages, turn into 20 pages, turn into 45 pages, and then I say, okay, I got a problem now because I worked too hard, too much. I'm just not going to leave this, throw it into the garbage bin. I'm just going to make a small book, 80, 90 pages, explaining why this is a big mistake. Okay, so the book went above 300 pages. I think still, too little. But the point is, China is not an alternative model of development, especially not for small, underdeveloped countries. You're making a big mistake. Overcapacity is just going to destroy the economic tissue. Small country like Honduras. This is what I was trying to. There was nothing I could do by just writing a book, Fergus. But, a man has to feel that it did something and that it's there in history. If you're going to look for it in the future, I tried to do something about it by explaining why that was a big mistake.
Is there an English version on the way?
The book was written in English, actually, and I translated it to Spanish. I'm going to send you the link because the original, which I told you already, it has a second edition. The second edition includes what I researched to be the U.S. Navy answer to a PLA invasion of the island of Taiwan, basically. And quickly, what the answer says basically that a successful military invasion of the island of Taiwan by PLA forces, it's not going to be considered a military triumph by the United States, and that the answer will be in the global economic infrastructure of China. That's basically the warning given by the U.S. Navy. And I think the price of a successful military invasion of Taiwan is way too great for China in light of that warning admonition by the United States. So yes, there is an English version. I'm going to send you the link.
That's great. I'm just when I went looking, I saw the Spanish version, and I must have got tripped up somewhere. I'm not sure, but so the book is China versus the United States: Too much to lose in a war, by Daniel Cruz. But let's just clarify, because you say I just want to make sure people get a clear message. Why is pivoting allegiance or focus away from the United States to China so, in your mind, harmful or counterproductive for Honduras?
1979, the U.S. and China signed full agreement, full diplomatic relations, trade agreement. That's when the true development of China starts. In the 80s, in the 90s, there was crazy technological transfer by the greatest U.S. corporations into China, as well as heavy investment by the largest market capitalization in the world, which is the United States. Commerce, trade, exchange with the United States, it's precisely what made China rich, powerful, and a technological powerhouse today. So why would you think that a small country, China just gave you a great example. 40 years, 40 years of successful industrial trade with the United States, and look where China is now. Okay, so why would you think that turning away your small Central American country is going to do anything for you other than lead you into failure? Obviously, the Chinese are not going to tell you that, right? Because they're trying to take over your little national markets. It's very little, but you add a lot of little markets and you get a market for your cheap stuff that you make. Because our countries cannot buy the high-end industrial and technological products that China sells to the United States and to Europe, for example. We're just going to buy, sneakers and cheap electronical gadgets, you know. So it's a big mistake to turn away. It's a big economic mistake to turn away Honduras from the largest, highest consumption market of the whole world, a market that made China rich and powerful. It's very simple. I had to write a book to tell people, to explain it. It's very simple. You don't need to read a book, man. Just, read a little bit, Google it. But our politicians don't do that.
Yeah, there is a great deal of, let's say, irony, or there's a paradox there that China became wealthy when she opened up to the United States. You know, I just have a hard time because I was in Ecuador a couple of months ago, and the people there are saying, well, our trade with China is almost as great as our trade with the United States. Why should we care about the United States? And I said, well, your institutions will be corrupted by the Chinese, right? Do you want to have these communist institutions? But what would you say to the Ecuadorians who are feeling like they're on the fence there between China and the United States?
I will ask Ecuadorians, Colombians, Venezuelans, and Peruvians and Chileans, when you said we have larger trade with China, what exactly do you mean by that? Trade. Open it. Google it. What are you talking about when you say trade? I'm going to tell you what you're talking about. You're talking that your imports from China have just jumped like crazy. Okay? Your country is currently being invaded by cheap stuff. And the worst part, you know what it is? Ecuadorians do not benefit from that because China not only exports products and services, it exports Chinese businessmen. You can see it in Honduras. There's been an invasion of Chinese-owned shops where they sell very, very, very cheap stuff that only Chinese can get those prices. If you go there, Fergus as a Canadian, if I go there as a Canadian or as a Honduran, go and you look for that and you say, let's do it business. I'm going to buy some stuff and go sell it in South America. You're not going to get those prices. Those prices are only for Chinese and they're subsidized by the Chinese government. So when you say we have larger trade with China, what you're saying is that your country is being inundated by Chinese products and your exports to China are very small, much smaller. What you should try to do instead is just sell more stuff to the US that's very close here. You don't have to travel 15,000 miles, 1,500 kilometers to get to China. You can just go there, go to California, sell your stuff. China became rich by selling their products into the United States. You should do the same.
Okay. I mean, you're right that when you engage with the Chinese, you're engaging with an incredibly mercantilist or planned economy, one of deep favoritism. And that's the whole problem that, as you said, they export their businessmen and they will infect your institutions, your trade practices with their mentality. Now, gosh, Daniel, there's so much going on in Honduras, mate. I'm not sure where to start. I just today saw, for example, a Canadian couple who've been living on the Caribbean coast for about a bit over a decade. You might have seen this. And I wanted to have a bit of a tear, to be frank. I was going, for the love of God, it's like, can we just stop, I don't know, invading just these kind old people? I was just thinking, they're the most harmless people. And so, do you want to comment on whether anything can be done at a macro level to address such invasions?
I do, Fergus, because it makes me so angry. I'm just, suddenly came into my mind. I'm always trying to pinpoint historical situations that can serve, to mirror what's going on. I'm just going to tell you a little example. When during World War, we had a president here, Tiburcio Carías Andino, and just because he wanted to look good in the eyes, in Washington, he expelled the German industrial investors that were in the south of Honduras, Choluteca and all that. He expelled them completely. He expelled them. He did not ask them. Most of them didn't even know Hitler. They didn't support the Nazis. He totally expelled them. Most of them went to Guatemala. Guatemala had no trouble with them. They moved their operations to Guatemala, and they became the industrial heart of Guatemala right now, which has an industry far more developed than that of Honduras. Okay. So when Honduras in 1969 decides to go into a war with El Salvador, made worse by some soccer, situation. They expelled thousands and thousands of Salvadorans who had businesses, who had industry, who were working. Look where El Salvador is going right now. Okay. So right now what you have is you have expats, expats come from the United States and Canada and from Europe. They come, they bring some business. I know I have several friends who have been successful here. When you start doing this, they're just going to go away and you're going to lose know-how, lose connections, lose tourism. And the worst is the damage to your country's national branding. So instead of attracting more people from Canada, us Canadians, we don't like big winters. So we just try to find a place where we can just move in, at least for the winter. Yeah, man. So instead of building, more colonies to attract Canadians and Europeans and people from the US who are running away from winter, we start doing these things. But the greatest danger here, Fergus, and I'm just going to go straight at it, it's there is ample reason to see, I'm not going to say to believe, there is reason to see that there's present Honduras government is encouraging these invasions and these crimes. Yes, you have people there in government who are justifying, who are saying that this is a fight for land and that people is just recovering. How can you recover someone's summer retreat in Honduras? How can you say that when there's enough land anywhere else so that you can so that you can fix that problem? There is people in government justifying this. So this is a massive, massive, massive mistake that is going to hurt Honduras dearly. People who have been attacked, Canadians who have been attacked, they're saying they're moving away from the country. So this is a great tragedy. It's so sad. It's so sad. The only solution that I see definitely is electing a new government, because that's just going to take care of this problem and reverse it. Return the land. The damage is already done. I don't think people who have took already a decision that you're just going to move away from Honduras. I don't think you can bring them back, but at least you can stop this problem from becoming just worse and worse. New government.
Daniel, I totally agree with you. The big problem, there are a couple of big problems. One is the damage to the brand of Honduras as a place to invest and to retire or whatever it may be. The second is the loss of the talent. The people who can bring new ideas or who can create organizations. Now, you have been one Honduran who has lived abroad, right? Who left. You're part of the somewhat drain now. Just as we finish up, is there a particular policy or let's say range of policies that would bring back this enormous Honduran diaspora?
Definitely. And you have to go by investment. This huge Honduran diaspora that you mentioned, they're really interested. I've seen a trend. I've seen it over the years. They're investing back into the country. Some of them believe that they're not going to live in North America or Europe forever, and that they will want to have something to retire. But plenty of them, most of them, I will say, are investing because of love for the country. They want to do. But, they're working there, Fergus. They're not necessarily training in how to invest. So I've seen a lot of like failed projects, which is it's sad. So what you have to do is a government has to create a national investment fund where you can tell these people invest here. We're just going to show you, and we're going to give you better performance for the money that you're investing. And so here are these projects, and they are directed by professionals. I have friends, just to give you an example, who say we're just going to plant 100 manzanas or hectares of corn. And they did. They invested a lot of money in planting corn. What happened? ETA and Iota came in, just washed the whole field. They lost all the money. So you don't want to have that. You don't want people to get discouraged from investing back into the country. You have to give them better investment opportunities, and they have to be centrally planned by government. But of course, you need a new government for that. Central planning. That's what China does. That's what successful countries do, at least during a phase, so that they can bring economic development into the country. That's what we have to do here.
It's a very tough challenge building the initial, what you might call soft paternalism, to create the architecture within which enterprise can grow. Gosh, there's a lot to touch on there. Daniel, how can people get in touch with or follow you?
I will say, Fergus, that X will be the best choice, because I'm not really doing Facebook or whatever, Instagram, and I'm not doing the TikTok thing either. I don't have the time for that. And naturally, I'm most attracted to X. I have a bad handle there, but it's there. It's Crux Axis Mundi, which I believe in Latin means that the cross is the axis of the world. I believe that will position me as somewhat a conservative Catholic,
Yeah, if you're on YouTube, just go down to the description. If you're on the Impunity Observer website, just go to the show notes, and we'll have a link to his X account. Also, we'll have a link to his book, China versus the United States: Too Much to Lose in a War. And I'm excited to check that one out myself, Daniel. There's so much going on right now. We appreciate so much your support, engagement with our content, and we look forward to learning more from you in the future.
For sure. Fergus, you just said it, and I'm here, man. Really enjoyed it. Thank you very much.